Do you find yourself playing it small when you know that you have so much more potential? If so, in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you why you're holding yourself back and how to get unstuck. So to give the general reason why it is that people tend to play it small is because there's something about going bigger that makes them feel unsafe in some way. So I'm going to give you some common example reasons that I've seen working as a coach for the past 7.5 years when I've had clients who are playing it small. One example that I've seen relatively frequently is that people can tend to sort of self-police, hold themselves back and play it small because there's a kind of imposter syndrome going on. They're afraid of being exposed as a fraud. So what they do is they play it small so that nobody could say, hey, who are you to do that? Another example that I've seen very frequently is the limiting belief that if I let myself expand, if I play it bigger, then I'm going to have more responsibility, more burden, and more work. And if there's already a sense of overwhelm, that kind of expansion can really feel uncomfortable. So I'll give a more personal example as well. And so there have been times in recent years where I've played it really small and almost tried to blend more into the background, despite the fact that what I've been doing requires a high degree of visibility. And so for my line of work, the more that I can make myself visible, the more I'm able to actually have the impact that I want to have. And yet for a few years there, I found myself really shrinking away and really feeling uncomfortable with having eyeballs on me. And what I eventually realized is that I felt overexposed. There were certain privacy boundaries that I was not aware of because I really valued transparency. And so I'd been neglecting my privacy boundaries. And in not honoring those privacy boundaries, I had been going over them. And so part of me really wasn't trusting me to protect those privacy boundaries. And so basically because of the feelings of overexposure and a lack of proper boundaries, I found myself playing it small to try to set more passive boundaries through shrinking myself. So in all three of those examples, there were reasons to feel unsafe with playing it big, and so defaulting to playing it small was a protection mechanism. But you'll notice that all of those reasons were very different. And so if you're playing it small, what you have to realize is what you're actually trying to protect yourself from by playing small. And this will require some contemplation, and a very simple question you can start out that contemplation with is to ask yourself, how am I trying to protect or serve myself by playing small? And your answer will be very personal to you. Maybe it's the case that you're playing it small so that you don't get criticized by other people. Maybe you're playing it small because if you were to fully shine, family members would be jealous of you. Or maybe playing it small is a way to keep yourself connected to other people who are also playing it small. Or maybe you've been taught things like the nail that sticks out gets hammered. Or maybe you have a really strong identity around humility, and so you play it small in order to maintain that identity of humility. And if you were to cease to consider yourself humble, maybe you would feel shame. Or maybe playing it small is a way to become invisible because you're safer when you're invisible. Or maybe it's the case that you feel really uncomfortable wielding power because you're afraid that you're going to make mistakes. And so you play it really, really small and minimize your power so that you don't make any major mistakes. So as you can see, there are many, many reasons why people play it small, but all of them are to protect themselves from something. And so what you want to ask yourself is, how am I trying to protect or serve myself by playing it small? And you want to sit with that till you get a really, really solid answer. So doing that will help you understand why you're playing it small. But in a moment, I'm going to be sharing with you how to actually resolve the patterns that cause you to play it small so that you can stop playing it small. But first, I wanted to mention that I offer support for people who are looking to reach their full potential but are holding themselves back. And so if that sounds like you, you can click the link down below in the description box to apply to work with me. Now, getting back to the reason why you're playing it small. Once you realize why you're playing it small, you can then resolve it at the deeper root cause. And what you want to ask yourself is, how can I render this protection mechanism obsolete? So let's say, for example, that you're playing it small because you're trying to avoid judgment from other people. And if you actually let yourself shine, you fear that it's going to attract in a lot of people scrutinizing you. If that's the case, you want to ask yourself, how can I render that protection mechanism obsolete? In that case, you would have to become more okay with judgment and scrutiny, which means you would have to actually take both positive and negative feedback and diminish it in your mind about how much it means about you. So one of the things when it comes to judgment and criticism, and then also compliments, is that if you live by the sword, you die by the sword. So if you take compliments too seriously and you take them them as a reflection of yourself, or when somebody says something positive about you as a reflection of yourself, you're also going to take negative criticisms just as seriously. And so in that case, you would have to take the authority out of other people's opinions of you. And this would also require you to put more stock in your own opinion and to see authority over your own life as coming from inside of yourself as opposed to outside of yourself. So that's one example of how to resolve this protection mechanism of keeping yourself small. Now, if I go back to my example from earlier, where I wasn't paying attention to my privacy boundaries and I was feeling overexposed, and so part of me was playing it small in order to feel safer and protected, and because I didn't trust myself to set those privacy boundaries. And a big part of that was that I valued transparency so much that I felt like I needed to over-explain everything and lay everything out on the table, and that I couldn't have anything just to myself. And so what I had to do is I had to realize the importance of privacy, and I actually had to tune into my own boundaries around privacy and actively, consciously set those boundaries. That way I could set active boundaries around privacy as opposed to an unconscious part of me setting passive boundaries through playing it small. And to give another example of how to render the tendency of playing it small obsolete is, let's say that you're playing it small in order to maintain belonging in a group who also plays it small. What you would need to do in this case is you would need to start developing new connections with other people who want to expand as well. And that doesn't mean you have to go no contact with the people who are playing it small. Just put a little bit more emphasis on the social relationships where people are on the same wavelength as you and who want to grow and who want to expand. Now, these are just several examples of how to resolve the dynamic of playing it small. But again, you want to ask yourself, why am I playing it small? How am I trying to protect or serve myself by playing it small? Once you realize the reason, you want to ask yourself, how can I render that protection mechanism obsolete? And then the answer should be fairly obvious as to how to do that once you really contemplate deeper into it. Now, another common reason why people tend to play it small is because they have limiting beliefs about themselves and limiting beliefs about reality. And so if you want to learn how to let go of limiting beliefs so that you can stop playing it small, I recommend checking out this video right here.